We're on DAF Kuf Mem Amud Aleph today, and last thing we're learning about is straining an egg through a mustard strainer. So now we're continuing along the discussion of mustard seed and the itmar. It's the very top line of DAF Kuf Mem Amud Aleph. Chardol shaloshu me'erev Shabbos. I'm not a mustard expert as far as I like mustard, but I don't manufacture it. So I don't know exactly what was done, but apparently there's a kneading process where you take the mustard seed and you do some kind of kneading of it in the preliminary stage, and then at some later stage, after you made it into a dough, you add water or wine, like Dijon mustard, in order to give it a smoother consistency. So that's the process that the Gemara is describing here. So if a person had kneaded the mustard into a dough from before Shabbos, so l'machar amarav memachol b'kli avolo biyad. So on Shabbos, if you want to add wine or water to it, you can only do that with a utensil like a spoon, but you can't mix it in with your hands. So Amar le Shmuel biyad atu kol yom memachol le biyad machol chamorimu. So Shmuel says, I don't understand. Are you suggesting that the normative way of mixing it is with your hands? That's what you do for a donkey. You don't mix prepared mustard with your hands. That's not something that you would feed to your guests. That's not the normative way of doing it. So therefore, if you're suggesting that I use a shinoi, it should be just the opposite. Ela Omar Shmuel memachol biyad ve'enu memachol b'kli. But rather Shmuel says you mix it with your hand and do not mix it with a kli to do a shinoi. So itmar Rabbi Elazar Omar echad zeh v'echad zeh asur. So Rabbi Elazar says that both using a kli and a hand to mix prepared mustard is asur on Shabbos. But Rabbi Yochanan Omar echad zeh v'echad zeh mutar. And Rabbi Yochanan says that they're both mutar, no problem. Abaye v'Rava d'Amri to Ravayu ein halacha Rabbi Yochanan. Abaye and Rava both said that halacha is not like Rabbi Yochanan because he's too liberal. He permits both with a kli and with a hand. Come Rabbi Yochanan b'shitzei de Rabbi Elazar. But later the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan retracted and he relented to be more machmir like Rabbi Elazar and said that both are usher, both using a hand and a kli. But then come Rabbi Elazar b'shitzei de Shmuel. But then Rabbi Elazar was more liberal and he decided to paskin like Shmuel, so that he was makel with a hand but not with a kli. Abaye v'Rava dormi to Ravai halacha Rabbi Yochanan, and on that, at that point, Abaye and Rava said the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, that both are aser. Ime de Abaye, and to illustrate this, Abaye's foster mother once avdolei v'lo achal. She prepared for him mustard on Shabbos and he refused to eat it. Devisu de ze'era avdolei l'Rav Chia bar Ashi v'lo achal. The wife of Ze'era, and I don't know what her relationship was to Rav Chia bar Ashi. It either is that it was her son-in-law, or perhaps it was her second husband. I don't know what the relationship was, but she prepared for him the mustard after Ze'era was not there, and he refused to eat it. So Amar Leisa, she said to him, "L'Rabcha avidi le'va'achal va'at lo achlas." I prepared this for my husband, your Rebbe, and he ate it, even though I did this on Shabbos. So you're going to be more machmir than your Rebbe? What's going on over here? So Amar Rava bar Shava havakaimna kamei de Ravina ubacha shilei besuchta de tuma va'achal. So Rava bar Shava says that I was once in Ravina's house, and his wife prepared this mustard for him on Shabbos together with a heart of garlic, meaning the center part of the garlic, to give it some extra zing, and he went ahead and he ate it. Amar Marzutra lesil chasa k'cholhani shmaitza. And Mar Zutra says the halach is not like any of the aforementioned. Ela kihad itmar chardol shaloshon erev Shabbos l'macham remachol memacho bein biyad bein bekli v'nosin lachoso devash. That the halacha really is that we can be makel completely. That if you needed the mustard before Shabbos, you're allowed to add water or wine to it on Shabbos, and you can mix it either with your hand or with a kli. And you can add honey to it. That's honey Dijon mustard, right? And velo yitrof ella me'arev. And you're not allowed to mix it vigorously, because that's already in like an uvda dechol. But you should just mix it gently. Shachalayim sheshachan me'erev Shabbos. And if you have cress, sort of like a salad that you've been soaking, or that you've minced, actually in this context, you've minced it from before Shabbos. L'machar nosein l'sochen shemen v'chometz. On Shabbos, you're allowed to add oil and vinegar, like a vinaigrette dressing. Umamshich l'sochen amita, and you can add to it a mint leaf, velo yitrof, but again, don't mix vigorously, elo me'arev, but rather mix gently. Stirred, not shaken, right? Shom sherisko me'erev Shabbos, and if you have garlic that was minced from before Shabbos, l'machar nosin l'socho pulu grisin, the next day you can add to it, which was, I guess, the standard way to eat garlic, minced garlic. You could add a certain kind of bean to it on Shabbos. Below yishchot, but don't grind it up. Elo me'arev, but rather just mix it gently. Umamshichet amita l'sochen, and you can add mint leaf to it as well. My amita, what is amita leaf? And it's the Gemara answer is ninaya. It is mint. Amar Abaye shma minaha ninaya ma'alya l'tachali. Abaye says, you see from here that mint is good for cress. Now, what is he, Martha Stewart? I mean, what is he trying to tell us? This Gemara today's DAF is a Martha Stewart DAF. We're going to see a lot of these eitzes. We're going to see a lot of these seemingly prosaic pieces of advice that are unbecoming at face value, seem to provide no benefit, or seem to be non-rabbinical in nature. Also, we could argue that Abaye is telling us that it's healthy for us to take it, because Abaye was known for a lot of refuahs that he gave us earlier in Masechah Shabbos. But we're going to see a lot of Martha Stewart things in this Gemara today. I want you to remember a basic klal that we've mentioned before. Whenever you see something that Chazal say that seems outlandish or unusual or bizarre, understand that they speak in an esoteric language. There's always something underneath the surface that provides a deeper message on a mystical level, and therefore, even though it may seem to be the most mundane and really just like coming out of left field, nevertheless, there is a much deeper meaning for all the things that we're going to see today.
They don't think it comes from Orthodox.
Ba'osin, well, you got to try better, Bob. Ba'osin anumlin b'Shabbos. Yeah, we're allowed to make anumlin on Shabbos, which is a certain kind of elixir, certain kind of beverage. And we're going to elaborate on what this is. Tana Rabbanan osin anumlin b'Shabbos, ve'nosin aluntis. You're allowed to make an anumlin beverage, but you cannot prepare an aluntis on Shabbos. Ve'izohi anumlin, ve'izu aluntis. What's the difference between the two? Anumlin yainu devashu palpalin. So anumlin is just a regular cocktail beverage. It's wine, honey, and pepper. But aluntis is yain yashnu mayim shlunim ve'afarsimon da'abdile lebei masus lebmeikar. But an aluntis is more than just a cocktail. It's used for medicinal purposes. When you come out of the bathhouse and you want to cool off from the extreme heat and steam that's in the bathhouse, you would drink this and it would give you this sense of a cool sensation. It was aged wine, it was clarified water and persimmon oil, and you'd mix that together, and that would give you like a cooling off sensation. So Amar of Yoseph, Zimna Chada Alis Basar Mar Ukvala Beibani Kinafki Asoi Ashkayan Chamra Chad Kasa. That when I came out of the bathhouse after following Mar Ukva, they presented me with this cup of wine, this type of beverage that we just described, and they only gave me one cup of it. However, the chashi mi binta derashi v'adurfa. However, the sensation that went through me was so pungent and powerful that I felt it from the tip of my hair down to my toenails. In other words, my whole body was tingling and overpowered by the sensation. And turfa dekari, the ashkayin kas achrina, had I had to drink another cup of that stuff, I might have thought that I was going to have some of my olam haba deducted in order to protect my life, because this stuff was so powerful it could have killed me. And if I would have had to drink another cup and survive, it would have meant that I might have gotten some of my schar and olam haba deducted because of the protection. So v'hamar ukva deshasi kol yoma. So the Gemara says, what's the big deal? Mar Ukva used to drink a cup of this stuff every day after coming out of the bathhouse. The Gemara says, shani Mar Ukva dedashbe. The answer is because he was used to it. When I went to the Ukraine several years ago, I sat down and had a meal with a bunch of old Russians, and they were literally drinking vodka like it was water. They poured a full glass of vodka and drank it like way you and I would drink water, and just downed it in about 5 seconds, put it down, and we're ready for the next glass. If I would have tried to do that, it would probably kill me. And that's what the Gemara is describing here. When you're used to drinking alcoholic beverages in this really potent stuff, so you got to be used to it. If not, it could really shock your system.
Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect. There you go. Masnisen. Next Mishnah. Ein shorin es achiltis beposhrin. You're not allowed to soak chiltis, which is a certain kind of plant, in lukewarm water on Shabbos. Now, it's not clear to us what chiltis is, but I'm going to tell you what it is in just a second. And you're not allowed to soak it in poshrin. The question is, why not? It's some kind of preparation that you're doing. The chiltis is going to seep out, the flavor is going to seep out into the water. It may be a form of bishul, or it may be, even if it's not bishul because it's only poshrin, there may be some other thing that you're doing here on Shabbos, lukewarm water. So, what is chiltis? It translates as laserwort. It's a certain kind of plant that is now extinct, according to Wikipedia. Furthermore, you'll be interested to know that the laserwort plant was known in the ancient world as being a birth control device. And therefore, it was known as to be the key to any kind of love affair between a man and a woman, because otherwise they would not be able to engage in their relationship. So the laserwort plant, because of its association to love, the leaf of the laserwort plant is in the shape of a valentine. And that is how that became the sign of love to this day, is because of this chiltis plant. Azoi zakt Wikipedia. But we're not going to see any of this today in the Gemara, because the Gemara doesn't discuss that. Obviously, the Gemara would never advocate using this for anything licentious like it was used by the other nations. However, just to keep that in mind, that it was a well-known plant in the ancient world. So now the Gemara says, Aval nosein l'socha chometz, but you are allowed to put this into vinegar on Shabbos. Ve'ein sholin es hakarshinin v'lo shafinosan. The next thing that you're not allowed to do is karshinin. They translate as vetch, which is another kind of plant. I don't even know whether it's even existent anymore. That sholin means that you pour water over them in order to remove whatever husk or waste product is still on the plant. However, v'lo shafinosan, you're not allowed to rub it with your hands in order to remove the husk. Aval nosin l'tocha kvar l'socha kalkala. What you are allowed to do is just toss it into a sieve, and which is filled with holes, or a basket filled with holes, and if the husk falls off of it on its own and falls through the holes, that's fine. So, ein kovrin es hatevin b'kavara. Now, I don't know the process over here that the Mishnah is describing, because I just simply don't know the Metzius. But if you have a description in your Gemara, please let me know. But it says that there would be stalks of wheat, and the stalks of wheat have a bushy tail to it, at the end of the stalk. And you would want to remove that, because that's not edible, even for your animals, whereas the stalk, which could be used as straw, is edible. So you're not allowed to sift away the bushy tail of the stalk in a sieve. Nor are you allowed to place it in a high place, I guess so that the wind will cause the chaff to blow off. But what you are allowed to do is pick up the stalks in a sieve and then place it in a trough, so that hopefully over the course of some time and movement, I guess maybe the animal will move it, whatever, that the chaff will fall away through the bottom in the holes of the sieve, and what will be left will be just the hay. That's the best that I can do as far as explaining what's going on. I don't know any better exactly the Metzius. It's hard for me to imagine it, because I'm just not a farmer and I don't live in the ancient world. So now the question is raised as follows: Ibayilu, Sharamai. What happens if you soak this laserwort plant? What are you in violation of? So in the lukewarm water. So Tirgama Rav Ada Narsha Kamei de Rav Yoseph Shara Chayiv Chatas. The initial thinking is that you've done a malacha. What malacha? The Gemara says it doesn't say. Whether it's borer or whether it's bishul, it's very hard to even conceptualize it. But immediately Abaya jumps on this. Amalei Abaya elameata shara umsa b'maya hachanami demichayev. If you just soak a piece of meat in water, are you going to tell me that you're chayiv just because the flavor seeps out? So that doesn't seem to make any sense. So Ella Amar Abaya midarabanan shelo yasa kederach shu osa b'chol. But rather Abaya says, does anyone know? Does your art scroll tell you what the havamina was? That it was a malacha d'oraisa? I don't even know what the havamina was. But Abaya says that it's a rabbinic prohibition, and the basis of the prohibition is that you should not do it in the way that you normally do it during the weekday, because again, the rabbis restricted what's called uvda d'chol, a weekday activity. So now the question is, okay, so if you can change the normative way that you're doing it and soak this laserwort, this chiltis plant, in cold water, would that be okay? So Amarle Aser. He said, no, that's also Aser. So he asked him back, he said, but look what the Mishnah says. It only prohibits soaking it in lukewarm water, but it sounds like if you use cool water, room temperature water, then that would be okay. So Amarle Yimkein Ma Ben Li Vilach. So he said to him, like looking at him almost in a sarcastic fashion, he said, well, what's the difference between you and me? You don't think I know the Mishnah? Of course I know the Mishnah. I know the Mishnah seems to imply that you can put it in cold water, but let me explain to you what knowledge that I have that you don't possess. Masnisin Yechidahi. The Mishnah is a das yachid. It only goes according to one Tana, which is Rabbi Yossi, as the Brisa illustrates. The Tanya, in shones achiltas lo bechamen velo betzonin. The Tana Kama, which is the Chachamim, say that you're not allowed to soak chiltas either in cold water or warm water. And Rabbi Yossi Omer bechamen aser betzonin mutter. Rabbi Yossi says no, only in warm water is aser, but in cool water it's mutter. So therefore, I go like the Tana Kama of the Brisa, and therefore that's why I tell you that it's aser both in cool and warm water. Lamayav delay. What do people use the laser wart plant for? Not like Wikipedia says. The Gemara is going to tell us another use for it. The Gemara says liyukra deliba, if you have a heavy heart. Now, what exactly that means, we don't know. It could be an angina. It could be indigestion.
Angina. No, angina is correct too. Both pronunciations.
Okay, thank you.
Listen to the doctor. Rav Acha bar Yosef chash biyukra deliba. So once Rav Acha bar Yosef became ill, in other words, he had this heavy heart, which we don't know exactly what the condition is. Asalakame de Mar Ukva. So he comes before Mar Ukva Amar Le Zil Shasi Tlasa Tikli Chiltasa Bitlasa Yome. So he said, take 3 gold coin weight, the weight of 3 gold coins worth of this chilta, and soak it in water and drink the elixir over the course of 3 days. So Azal Ishti Chamsha b'Shabbos Umali Shabbos. So he started the regimen on Thursday. The problem was that the 3rd day would be Shabbos. So the question is, could he take it on Shabbos? So Litzafra Azal Shal Bei Medrash. So he goes to the base Medrash on Shabbos to find out, am I allowed to drink this Shabbos morning? So Amrulei Tana Devei Rav Ada, Amrila Tana Devei Mar Bar Rav Ada, Shosa Adam Kabo Kabayim Veinachosh. Yeah, you can drink a whole kav or 2 kavs of this liquid, of this elixir on Shabbos. It's no problem. So Amrilahu Lishtos Lokami Bayali. My question is not whether I can drink it, because I guess it's not as medicinally indicated. It's not so obviously medicinal. So obviously they say it's permitted. Kikami Bayali. My question is Lishros Mai. Am I allowed to soak it on Shabbos? That was my shaila. So Amrilahu Rav Chia Bar Abin B'didi Hava Uvda V'Yasoi Shailte LaRav Ada Bar Ahava. So Rav Chia Bar Abin tells me, you know what? I once had the same scenario where it was my 3rd day of taking this elixir, and it was on Shabbos, and I asked Rav Ada Bar Ava, he didn't know. So Asai Shilti LaRav Huna V'Amar Hachi Ka'Amar Rav Shara B'Tzonon Maniach B'Chama. So then I went to ask Rav Huna, and he told me that in the name of Rav, you can't soak it in lukewarm water, but soak it in cool water and then put it in the sun so that the heat of the sun will cause the leaf to seep out into the water. So the Gemara says, Command to show you. So clearly this seems to go like the Manda Amar, who says that you are allowed to soak it on Shabbos, and not like that Brisa of the Tanakam of that Brisa, who said that even in cool water is Aser. So the Gemara says, no, Afilu Lamanda Aser, Hani Mili Heicha Delo Ishti Klalo, Vahacha Kevin De Ishti Chamshum Ali Shabta, Ilo Shasi B'Shabbos, Mistakein. He says, no. Over here, even the Tanakam of that Brisa would be permissive. Why? Because there he's only talking about where you're beginning the regimen on Shabbos. But if you've already started the regimen on Thursday and Friday, and now you got to finish, if you don't take your dosage on Shabbos, it could be a sakana for you, because you've already started the medicine that needs to be taken over the course of 3 days. And therefore, everyone would agree that it's permitted to soak it even on Shabbos. So let me just point out that this is what we paskin like by antibiotics. You know, a person could say, well, it's my 5th day of taking antibiotics, falls out on Shabbos, and I'm totally better, I feel fine. But no, if you don't take that dosage, even if it's your final dose, you could have a relapse, and it could even be worse, because then the new strain of your virus, or your bacteria rather, bacterial infection, will be resistant now to the antibiotics, because you've already built up it in your system. So therefore, we always permit you, even when it's not a sakana, we always permit you to take antibiotics on Shabbos, even when you feel totally better. So mistamech ba'ozl Ravacha bar Yosef akisve the Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak bar Achte. So the Gemara tells us a story about Ravacha bar Yosef, who was an elderly man at the time of this story, and he was being carried on the shoulders of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, who was his nephew. So Amarle Kimatin Lebe Rav Safra Ailina. So he said to his nephew, do me a favor, sonny boy, when we get to the house of Rav Safra, I want you to bring me to his house. I have a shaila to ask him. Kimatu Aile, so that's what the nephew did. Ba'amine Mahu Kiskuse Kisnisa Bishabta. So the elder man asked Rav Safra, is it permitted to rub a freshly laundered linen tunic on Shabbos, a linen garment, a linen shirt? Are you allowed to rub it? Now, what was the purpose of rubbing it? So the Gemara explains, on the one hand, the guy's objective may be because they didn't have fabric softener in those days. So when you freshly laundered a linen garment, it was stiff, so you wanted to soften it up a bit. So therefore you could argue that it's okay, you're not doing anything wrong. Or maybe no, because as a result of rubbing it, you also are whitening and improving the appearance of the garment, and in which case, that's a form of libun, it's a form of laundering, which would be usher on Shabbos. So the question is, which one is it? So Amar Leila Rakuche Kamichave, the Shaper dummy. So Rav Safra said to him, no, it's fine. In this situation, it's permitted because it's indicated that you're doing it to soften it.
Well, he knows why he's doing it.
Right, but it could be. The question is, the appearance of it. Maybe people will see you doing it, and so anyway, kinafak asa, amarle my boy marmine. So when the elder man came out, his nephew asked him, so what did you ask the Rebbe? Amarle boy mine malikis kuse kisni. So b'shabta v'amali shapir dami. So he tells him, I asked him about rubbing this linen, the freshly laundered linen, and he told me it was fine. So v'tiboy le'lamar sudra. So the nephew asked his uncle, he said, well, why didn't you ask him about just a regular kerchief made out of wool, let's say, or cotton? So he answers, sudra lo komi boyli de boy miravhuna upashitli. He says the reason why I didn't have that shaila to him is because I had already asked Rav Huna that shaila, and he already paskined to me that it was usher. So v'tivsha le'lamar misurja. So then uncle, well then why didn't you extrapolate from his sock by a kerchief that it would also be usher by the linen tunic? So Amar le hasam mechsiki oludi chivra hachalo mechsiki oludi chivra. The Gemara answers. So the uncle said to me, he says, because by a kerchief it's clearly indicated that people want to whiten their kerchiefs. That type of fabric you want to whiten, therefore rubbing it is more problematic because it has the appearance automatically of you whitening something. But with a linen garment, people don't normally want to whiten their linen garments unless you clearly show that you're doing it. And therefore, because this is ambiguous, Rav Safra felt that it was okay. Amar Rav Chisda. Now we're going to see a series of pieces of Martha Stewart advice from Rav Chisda. So I want you to keep in mind what I told you before. So Amar Rav Chisda, Hai Kisnisa Mishalfo Lidida Mikanya Shari, but Kanya Mimena Asur. That when you have, so first he's going to tell us a halacha. When they would launder a tunic, a nice big shirt, they didn't have hangers in the way that we have them today, but they would take a stick like a bamboo, and they would stick it from one sleeve to the other to let it dry properly, so that it wouldn't be all messy when it would dry. So when you remove the shirt from the stick, you should remove the shirt from the stick and not the stick from the shirt, because the stick has the problem of being muktzah. So you can take the shirt off the stick, but not the other way around. So Amar Ravav in Kli Kivoy hu mutter, but so Ravav qualifies it. He says, but if the stick itself is a kli because it's used for weaving, so then it's fine. It's not muktzah anymore, even though it's normally used for weaving. But it's a kli shemalachta li'aser, and therefore you need to l'tzarach guf l'tzarach makomo. It's alright. So Amar Rav Chisda hai kishta diyarka ichazi l'maychol behem asher litiltulei v'ilo asir. He says if you have this bundle of herbs, he says if it could be used as animal fodder, then it's non-muktzah. But if not, then it's muktzah. Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav hai tilya de bisra shar litiltulei de kavari asir. And Rav Chia bar Ashi says that if you have a string of meat that's just been salted, it's raw, but it's been salted, so therefore it's edible, and therefore it's non-muktzah on Shabbos. But if you have a string of salted fish it's now in the process of drying, so at that point in the process it's not edible, and therefore it's muktzah, you can't move it. Amar Rav Ketina ha'omed be'emtza hamita ki'ilu omed b'kreisa shel isha. So you have to put in the girsa over here, because otherwise it has no context whatsoever. It's Rav Chisda saying in the name of Rav Ketina, because Rav Chisda is in the middle of his Martha Stewart, all of these Amorim of Rav Chisda, and he says in the name of Rav Ketina that if a person is in the bed of a friend of his where he knows that this friend and his wife sleep, then it's almost like you're standing or on top of the woman's stomach. Rashi explains it's because you're going to have thoughts of the man and his wife in bed, and it's not appropriate. It's going to cause sinful thoughts, and therefore you shouldn't do it. But the Gemara says, Valav milsi. But the truth is, says the Gemara, we don't paskin like that. We don't suspect that a person is going to have sinful thoughts just by sleeping in his friend's bed. V'amar Rav Chisda bar be'Rav d'Zavin Yarka Lisbon Aricha Kisha Ki Kisha v'Orcha Memela. So Rav Chisda now gives us a very important piece of advice. If you're a Talmud Chacham and you want to get the best bang for your buck, they used to sell strings of vegetables. The string was always the same length. It was always the standard length of string. So he says, when you're buying, let's say you're buying cucumbers or peppers, and they're going to be hanging by a string, always buy the strings in the market where the vegetables are longer. Because the string is always the same length, but the vegetables vary in length, so always get the best value. And buy the longer peppers instead of buying the shorter peppers. It'll last you longer. What a great piece of advice we need Rav Chisda to tell us, right? So, v'amar Rav Chisda, bar be'Rav d'Zavin Kanya l'Zavin Aricha, because tuna ki tuna v'urcha memela. Furthermore, he says, when you buy a bundle of sticks, the bundle has a certain finite number of sticks. So make sure you buy the bundle with the longer sticks and not the shorter sticks, because the longer sticks will last you better. So, v'amar Rav Chisda, bar be'Rav d'lo nafisha le'rifta lo leichel yarka mishum degarir. Furthermore, if a person does not have a lot of bread in the house in order to fill himself up, you shouldn't eat a lot of vegetables, because vegetables only make you hungrier, and you're going to get frustrated because you're going to eat the vegetables. It's going to act as an appetizer, and then you're not going to have bread to eat afterwards, and it's going to make you very upset. And Rav Chisda further said, when I was poor, I never ate vegetables. And when I was wealthy, I never ate vegetables. It's a kid's dream. When I was poor, I never did it, because vegetables act as an appetizer to make you hungry. When I was poor, I didn't have enough food to eat. And when I was wealthy, I said to myself, why should I waste my appetite on vegetables? Let me eat meat and fish. I can afford it now. Now, the Vilna Gaon tells us the deeper meaning of this Gemara. And with this Vilna Gaon, you can extrapolate to all of the Gemaras that we're going to see today, that we've seen already. The Gemara says that what this whole Gemara means is that when I was poor in my Torah knowledge, I was not yet a great Talmud Chacham, I didn't eat vegetables, I didn't study things that were external to the Torah, I didn't study philosophy. And why did I not study philosophy? Mishum de garir, because it draws you towards it, away from Torah. And when you don't have sufficient grounding in Torah, so then by studying these external ideas, you'll be pulled away from Torah. And when I was wealthy and I became a Talmud Chacham, I also didn't study philosophy, because I said to myself, I have so much access now to Torah knowledge, why waste my time on studying philosophy when the Torah contains everything? I might as well just take the meat and the fish of Torah instead of anything else that pales by comparison. So that's the meaning of what he's telling us over here. And furthermore, Rav Chisda says, and again, you have to extrapolate from this Gra to apply to these other Gemaras as well, that if a person does not have a lot of bread in the house, he should not make hamotzi. Why should you not make hamotzi? Because the person who makes hamotzi is supposed to be mevatseya ba'ayin yafeh, with a generous eye. And if a person doesn't have a lot of bread, he simply can't be generous. I'm sorry. The first taich Rashi says lo livtzi b'tzue means, Rashi says, he shouldn't eat in piecemeal fashion. Whereas let's say you don't have a lot of bread in the house, so don't start eating a small meal now and then later on go scrounging for a little bread that you'll find later. Wait until you accumulate a significant amount of bread before you sit down to eat, because then you'll be satisfied. But if you eat in piecemeal fashion, just snacking on whatever you can find, you'll never be full. So the next thing Rav Chisda says is, my time avid be'ayin yafa. That's what I was jumping the gun. This is where Rav Chisda says that if you don't have a lot of bread, you should not be the one to make hamotzi, because you won't be able to generously make hamotzi and break off a nice chunk, because you're going to be thinking about, oh, I don't have enough for the whole household. The Rav Chisda says, to illustrate this, that whenever it was time to make hamotzi, I would never make hamotzi unless I found a basket filled with everything that I needed, meaning a basket full of bread rolls. Then I would make hamotzi, because I knew that I could be botzeya ba'ayin yafeh. I could break bread with a generous eye. And the Gemara in Bracha says that that's the way you're supposed to make hamotzi, just to be able to show Hashem your appreciation when you make the bracha. Rav Chisda further says that if a person could subsist on barley bread and instead he splurges on wheat bread, which is more expensive, he's violating the mitzvah of Bal Tashchis. He's wasting money. You should be as frugal as possible. Rav Papa, and Rav Papa said, and Rav Papa says that if you can subsist on beer and you splurge and you buy wine instead, then you're also over on Bal Tashchis because you're wasting money. So someone pointed out to me this morning that Rav Papa was a beer manufacturer. So this was his ad for his company. Anyway, but the point is that V'lav Milsi, the Gemara says, but neither statement is true, neither Rav Chisda or Rav Papa. Why? Because Bal Tashchis the Gufa Adif. It's more important not to be wasteful with your body. If you can nourish your body with a superior product, such as wheat bread or wine, over barley bread and beer, it's better to take care of your body in the superior fashion. It's more Bal Tashchis to put shtup, a chazarai in your body. That's more of a Bal Tashchis than the Bal Tashchis of subsisting on cheaper food. Okay, V'amar Rav Chisda, bar be'rab delesle mishcha nimshi b'maya dechritzi. He says a Talmud Chacham who does not have fragrance oil to place over his hands. That was what they used to do after a meal. They would put perfumed oil, scented oil on their hands to remove the foul odor. If you don't have that, then here's another thing that you could use. You could use water that has a thick layer of pond scum on it. He says that water is just as good. I've never tried it. I don't recommend it. You never know what you'll find in there. Rav Chisda also said that if you're buying meat already from the butcher, buy the neck. The neck meat is the best. Why? Because you get 3 different grades of meat in the neck bone. You get fatty meat, you get lean meat, and you get medium in between. Rav Chisda Rav Dezavin Kitunisa Lisbon Midahar Abba, that if you're going to buy a linen tunic, always buy it from the guys that make it in Nahar Abba. That's the best place to buy linen fabric because they are the experts at manufacturing linen. And v'nichavra kol tlasin yomin, and you should launder it once every 30 days. The mefatchale tresayarchi, because that way it'll last you the whole year. Now, of course, looking at it at face value, he's telling us Martha Stewart, right? He's telling us some very simple, prosaic advice about where we should buy our clothes and how we should care for our garments. But of course, if you look at it in a more esoteric fashion, there's obviously a much deeper message over here, which you'll have to figure it on your own. So, Tracy Achishasa, Va'ana Arva, and furthermore, if this says, I'm the guarantor that this will work, I suspect it's referring to Torah study. Again, that if you review your Torah study on a monthly basis, it'll last you for the rest of your life. Now, my kitunisa, kitanoy, and what does the word kitunisa mean? Even though it literally means a linen garment, but it also can be translated as you'll be in a great class of people. Because when you wear this fancy tunic that you buy from that particular place, you'll be the envy of all your friends. People look at you and say, wow, he looks like $1 million.
Why is that not Bal Tashchis, spending money on expensive?
Again, because what did I just say? Because this is an esoteric Gemara. Furthermore, Rav Chisda says that a Talmud Chacham should not sit on a freshly manufactured mat because the moisture of the mat will ruin his clothes. Furthermore, he said that if you're staying at someone's inn and the innkeeper offers to do the laundry, you should not give your laundry your dirty clothes to the innkeeper to do the laundry, because she might see some stains on your clothes, let's say seminal emissions on your clothes, and she'll come to think ill of you, and it'll be a lowering of your kavod in her eyes. Next, Amar lahu Rav Chisda levenatei. Rav Chisda said to his daughters. Now this is an amazing Gemara because certain things you can never speak to your daughter about, and Rav Chisda was totally at ease talking to his daughters about these things. Tihavu tzniyasun be'ape gavraichu. When you're with your husbands, be very modest. Lo teichlu nahama be'ape gavraichu. Do not eat bread in front of your husbands, because when you eat in front of them, maybe they'll think that, oh, you're eating too much, you're a glutton. It'll be a turn-off for your husbands. Lo teichlun yarka b'leila, lo teichlun tamari b'leilia, v'lo tishtun shichra b'leilia. And velo tifnun. I'm sorry, velelia, period. Don't eat vegetables at night because it'll give you bad breath. Don't eat dates at night, and don't drink beer at night because those will give you gas. Velo tifnun heicha demafni gavraichu, and don't go to the bathroom where your husbands go, because even though it's away from the house, when your husband goes to the toilet over there, he'll remember that you went there, and it'll be a turn off as well. V'chikakari abava inish lo temrun mano ela mani. And furthermore, he said to them that when someone knocks on the door, when you say, "Who is it?" you should use the female conjugation of mani and not the male conjugation of mano, because that implies that you're used to having male visitors. And that's also going to be a turn-off for your husband. And then he said to them also something astounding. He said, "Nakit marganisa b'chadayade v'kura b'chadayade marganisa achvilahu v'kura lo achvilahu adamitztaran v'hadar achvilahu." In very euphemistic terms, basically what it boiled down to, he says, when you're having intimacy with your husbands, he's going to want to hold your breast in one hand, and he's going to want to fondle your genitalia with the other hand. And he said to his daughters, "My daughters, listen to my advice. Let them fondle your breasts. That's wonderful for them. It'll be exciting, but withhold them the ability to have free access to your genitals, because that'll get them more excited and anticipating, and that'll increase their pleasure, and then you'll end up pleasing your husbands even more." And that was the advice that he gave to his daughters. Okay. Ein sholan es karshinin. Next Gemara, that you don't soak cress. We said that you don't add water to the vetch. You don't add water to it on Shabbos in order to separate the chaff from it. So, but what you are allowed to do is you're allowed to toss it into a sieve and let the chaff blow off of it and flow through the holes. Masnisin deloki haitana the Tanya Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer emashkichin bekavara kol ikar. Our Mishnah does not go like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who's so machmir that he never allows you to handle a sieve at all for any purposes on Shabbos, and yet our Mishnah says that as long as you don't actively sift, it's okay to just put it inside the sieve. Next Mishnah. Gorfin milifnei hapatam u'misalkan litzdadim mipnei harei divrei Rabbi Dosa. Dosa permits you to do two things. He says you can sweep out in front of an animal who is getting fattened and is eating a lot of hay, and also you're allowed to completely move the hay to the sides of the barn in order to prevent the hay from getting dirty from the animal's defecation, from the animal's excrement. That's according to Rabbi Dosa. You can do this all on Shabbos, but the Chachamim Osrin, the Chachamim say you're not allowed to. Next, Notlan milifnei behema zu v'noslan milifnei behema zu b'Shabbos. The next Mishnah says that the next statement is you're allowed to take from one animal that's, let's say, not eating the hay or has a surplus of hay, and you're allowed to move it to the other animal who may not have enough hay. That you're allowed to do on Shabbos. So the Gemara now says, Ibayilahu Rabbanan Areisha Pligi, O Aseifa Pligi, O Atarvayo Pligi. It's a three-way question. The Gemara says, when it says the Chachamim say that you're not allowed to do that which Rabbi Dosa permits, Rabbi Dosa permits two things. He says you can sweep the floor in front of the animal, and you can move the hay to the sides of the barn. So when the Chachamim say, no, we say that it's usher, are they saying it's usher on one, or the second, or on both? That's the question. So Tashma Detanya v'Chachamim Omrim Echad Zeh ve'Echad Zeh Lo Yisalkenu Litzedadin. That the Chachamim say that Echad Zeh ve'Echad Zeh, that they're arguing on both points. They say both, when it comes to sweeping the floor and to moving the hay, you're not allowed to do either of the two. So Amar Rav Chizda Machlokes be'evo shel karka aval be'evo shel kli divrei hakol mutter. The only time there's a machlokes is when you're dealing with a trough on the ground. But when you're dealing with a trough that's where the hay is in a trough that's in a utensil, then everyone would hold that it's mutter. Because what's the whole problem? The whole problem why the Chachamim hold that it's aser is because of mash v'gumos, is that you're smoothing out the holes in the ground either by sweeping the floor or by moving the hay to the side. You're going to be exposing holes that you'll want to fill in. So the Gemara says, the Evo shel karka mi'ikol aman deshoy hakamash v'gumos. So the Gemara asks, how can anyone suggest that it would be permitted to move hay on the ground on Shabbos or sweep the floor? You're going to be smoothing out the holes in the floor. So how could Rabbi Dosa be permissive? So Ela itmar hachi itmar. But if anything was said, it was stated as follows: Amar Rav Chizda machlokas be'eva shel kli, aval be'eva shel karka divrei hakol aser. So rather, Rav Chizda says the machlokas is only with a utensil trough, that the Chachamim are more machmir, and they say that we're going to forbid the utensil trough, lest you come to do this when the hay is on the ground. And Rabbi Dosa says no, it's only usher when it's on the ground, but if it's in a kli, it's perfectly fine to move the hay around. And finally, v'notlin milifnei habehema, that you're allowed to take hay from one animal and feed it to another animal. So Tanachada notlin milifnei behema shapia yafa v'noslin milifnei behema shapia ra, v'tanya idach notlin milifnei behema shapia ra, v'noslin milifnei behema shapia yafa. We have two brises. The brises contradict each other. One brise says that you can take the hay from an animal who has a nice mouth and put it in front of an animal that has a bad mouth. And another brise says just the opposite. You can take the hay from an animal who has a bad mouth and put it in front of an animal who has a nice mouth. So what does this mean? So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Idi v'idi mikmei chamra lakame tura shaklin, mikmei tura lakame chamra lo shaklinon. Abaye says, let me explain to you what's going on over here. You see, you have two types of barn animals. You could have a donkey and you could have a cow or an ox. So an ox or a cow, they slobber all over the hay that they eat. They salivate all over it. And therefore, if you were to take that hay that they slobbered over and put it in front of a donkey, he wouldn't want to eat it. It's disgusting. But a donkey does not slobber over his food. And therefore, you could take from a donkey and put it in front of an ox. Because that way, the ox will still eat the hay, because the donkey doesn't slobber over it. So v'hada ketani notam lifnei behema shapia yafa bechamor de lesle riri v'nos lifnei behema shapia ra b'para de isla riri. So therefore, when the Brisa says you can take the hay from the animal that has a nice mouth and put it from the animal that has a bad mouth, it's saying take it from the donkey and put it in front of the ox. That's fine, because since the donkey does not salivate, it's perfectly fine that the hay will be clean enough for the ox to eat it.
So it's just a practical thing then.
Well, it's practical, meaning that no, otherwise it's muktzah. Otherwise you're not allowed to be matriach with it on Shabbos, because there's no point. And when the Brisa says the opposite, that you can take the hay from a bad animal and with a bad mouth and put it in front of an animal with a good mouth, what it means is, why is the donkey in this context called an animal with a bad mouth? Because it eats all types of chazarai. It's not discriminating as far as what it eats. And therefore, even though it doesn't salivate over the hay, but because it eats a lot of chazarai, it's called a pihara. It's got a bad mouth because it eats whatever it wants. It eats anything. And you can put it in front of an ox who's more discriminating as far as what he eats. He only eats hay, and therefore, but they both brises mean exactly the same thing. From a donkey to an ox is okay, but not from an ox to a donkey on Shabbos. Have a wonderful day.